I never imagined that my best friend would be the one to betray me. We had been inseparable since high school, living through our struggles, celebrating our victories, and dreaming of a bright future together. We both worked hard, pushing each other to reach our goals. It felt like a bond that could never break. But I was wrong. The job opening we both wanted was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a prestigious company, a dream position, the kind that could change everything. We promised each other that no matter who got it, we'd always support each other. No competition, we said. We're in this together. Or so I thought. I spent nights perfecting my resume, preparing for the interview, and rehearsing my answers. But deep down, I trusted her, believing we were in this as equals. The day before the interview, I shared everything with her: my strategy, my ideas, and even the questions I was anticipating. What I didn't know was that while I was pouring my heart out, she was taking notes. The day of the interview arrived, and I was confident. I walked into the waiting area only to find her sitting there, looking more prepared than ever. Something felt off, but I shook it off as nerves. When my turn finally came, I gave it my all. I left the room feeling hopeful. But when the results came in, my world shattered. She got the job. I didn't. At first I was happy for her, or at least I convinced myself I was, but as days passed, the cracks started to show. I overheard snippets of conversations, whispers about how impressive her ideas were, the same ones I had shared with her. She avoided me, dodging our usual coffee meetups, acting distant and preoccupied. I felt betrayed, yet I couldn't bring myself to confront her. I kept telling myself that maybe I was imagining things, maybe she just deserved it more. But deep down, a voice kept nagging at me, telling me the truth I didn't want to face. Then, I hit rock bottom. While struggling to find another job, I stumbled across a new opportunity, an even bigger position at a rival company. Desperate and heartbroken, I applied, not knowing it would be the best decision of my life. Weeks later, I received the call. I got the job, not just any job, but a managerial role. And fate had a funny way of working things out. Because guess who ended up under my leadership? My so-called best friend. The tables had turned, but I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next. Stepping into my new office felt surreal. The walls were sleek, the view was breathtaking, and the nameplate on my desk had manager written in bold letters. I had finally made it. But the real challenge was yet to come. On my first day, I walked through the corridors, head held high, feeling the weight of my new responsibilities. That's when I saw her sitting in a cubicle, hunched over her desk, furiously typing away. The moment she looked up and our eyes met, I saw it: the panic. She quickly turned away, pretending not to see me, but we both knew the truth. She wasn't ready for this. The tension in the air was thick. I could feel the whispers following me, subtle glances exchanged between employees. Some of them probably knew our history, or maybe they just sensed something was off. Either way, I was determined to remain professional. I wasn't here for revenge. I was here to do my job. The first team meeting was awkward, to say the least. I stood at the head of the table, scanning the faces in front of me. And there she was, sitting near the end, her expression blank, but her fingers tapping anxiously on the table. I took a deep breath and started. As your new manager, I want us to focus on results. We're here to collaborate, improve, and push ourselves beyond limits. I believe in transparency and teamwork, and I hope we can work together to achieve great things. I kept my gaze neutral, but I saw her shifting uncomfortably in her seat. She probably expected me to single her out, to throw her under the bus like she had done to me, but I wasn't going to stoop to her level. Days turned into weeks, and it didn't take long for me to see the cracks forming in her work. She struggled with deadlines, missed important details, and often seemed flustered during presentations. The confidence she stole from me was slipping through her fingers. One afternoon I called her into my office. She walked in hesitantly, avoiding eye contact, and sat down. I leaned forward, folding my hands on the desk. "Listen," I said, keeping my tone calm. "I've noticed you've been having trouble keeping up with the workload. Is everything okay?" She swallowed hard and nodded quickly. "Yeah, everything's fine, just adjusting." But I knew the truth. She wasn't cut out for this level of work. Getting the job was one thing, keeping it was another. "I want to help you," I continued, surprising even myself. "But I need you to be honest with me. If you are struggling, let's figure out a way to make this work." For a moment I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes, but instead of opening up, she forced a smile. "I've got it under control." I nodded, letting it slide, but deep down, I knew she was drowning, and part of me wondered, was she finally realizing that success built on betrayal could never last? the pressure only increased from there. More deadlines, higher expectations, and tougher projects. Each time she fell short, I watched the frustration build in her eyes. The same frustration I had once felt when she took what was mine. But unlike me, she didn't know how to rise above it. She had always taken shortcuts, always relied on others to pave the way for her. And now, with nowhere left to turn, she was cracking under the weight of her own choices. And then came the moment I never expected, the breaking point that would change everything. The breaking point came sooner than I expected. It was a regular Monday morning, and the entire team was gathered for a high-stakes presentation with senior executives. I had delegated parts of the project to different team members, including her. She was responsible for the financial analysis, a crucial component. I trusted that, despite our history, she would deliver. But when the slides loaded on the screen, the room fell silent. The numbers were all wrong, graphs didn't align with our previous reports, and there were glaring inconsistencies that couldn't be ignored. I felt my stomach drop. The executives exchanged glances, their patience wearing thin. I turned to look at her. She was frozen, staring at the screen, her face pale. I must have uploaded the wrong file," she mumbled, her voice shaking. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "Do you have the correct version with you?" She fumbled through her laptop, clicking frantically, but it was clear she wasn't prepared. A part of me wanted to step in, to fix it for her like I always used to. But this time, it wasn't my responsibility to clean up her mess. One of the executives leaned back in his chair and sighed. "We expected better from your department," he said, his tone sharp. "This kind of oversight is unacceptable." I nodded and quickly redirected the presentation, using the backup data I had prepared just in case. The meeting ended on a shaky note, but we managed to salvage it. When the executives left, I turned to her. She was still sitting there, staring at the table, avoiding my gaze. "Stay back," I said firmly. The room emptied, leaving just the two of us. The silence was suffocating. "What happened?" I asked, keeping my voice calm but authoritative. She swallowed hard. I thought I had everything under control," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "I've been overwhelmed and I guess I just—" "You didn't prepare," I interrupted. "This isn't just about you anymore. The entire team is counting on each other. You can't keep winging it and hoping things will fall into place." She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw the fear in her eyes. The realization that the job she fought so hard to take wasn't what she expected it to be. She wanted the title, the prestige, but not the responsibility. I don't think I can do this," she whispered. I sighed, leaning back in my chair. "Then why did you take it in the first place?" She didn't answer, but we both knew why. She wanted what I had, without understanding the effort it took to get there. And now, faced with reality, she was crumbling. I gave her two choices. "You need to step up, or step aside. I won't let this affect the entire team's performance. I won't let this affect the entire team's performance." Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she nodded. "I'll do better," she muttered, though her voice lacked conviction. As she left my office, I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions: vindication, disappointment, and an odd sense of closure. The best revenge wasn't in making her suffer, it was in showing her that success couldn't be stolen, it had to be earned. But deep down I wondered, had she learned that lesson yet, or was this just the beginning of another downward spiral? The days that followed were tense. She tried to keep up appearances, showing up early, staying late, and acting like she had everything under control. But I could see through either performance was shaky at best, and her confidence was hanging by a thread. I watched her struggle through meetings, her usual charm now replaced with nervous stutters. She avoided eye contact with the team, and more often than not, I'd catch her staring blankly at her screen, overwhelmed by the workload she once thought she could handle effortlessly. Then came the quarterly review. As the department head, I had to assess individual performances, and hers was the one I dreaded the most. I knew she'd been slipping, but I had to remain impartial. The numbers didn't lie, her reports were inconsistent, deadlines were missed, and her team was quietly complaining about her lack of leadership. When she entered my office for the review, she sat stiffly in the chair, her hands folded tightly in her lap. I could see the exhaustion on her face, the weight of her own choices pressing down on her. I cleared my throat. "Let's talk about your performance, shall we?" I began, keeping my tone neutral. She nodded, her lips pressed together. "I know I haven't been at my best," she admitted before I could even continue. I leaned back in my chair, watching her closely. "Why do you think that is?" I asked. She exhaled shakily. "I thought I could handle it. I thought that once I got the job everything would just fall into place, but it's harder than I expected. I stayed silent for a moment, letting her words sink in. Finally, I spoke. Success isn't just about getting the job, it's about keeping it, proving you deserve it every day. Her eyes welled up, and for the first time in a long time, she looked vulnerable, genuinely remorseful. I realize that now, she whispered. I shouldn't have taken advantage of our friendship. There it was, the confession I had been waiting for. But strangely, it didn't bring me the satisfaction I thought it would. You wanted what I had, I said gently. But you never considered what it took to get there. She nodded, staring down at her hands. I did, and I was wrong. I sighed, flipping through her performance report. The truth is, you are not entirely failing. You still have potential, but you need to work for it. No shortcuts, no excuses. Her eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected any encouragement from me. You are not firing me? I shook my head. I am giving you a chance, a real one, but you need to prove you deserve it. She swallowed hard, wiping away a tear. I will, I promise. For the first time since this whole ordeal started, I saw a flicker of the friend I once knew, the one who dreamed big with me, who wanted to succeed for the right reasons. Maybe, just maybe, this experience would teach her a lesson she'd never forget. As she left my office, I leaned back in my chair, feeling a strange sense of relief. Maybe revenge wasn't about making someone suffer. Maybe it was about showing them the reality they once refused to see. But whether she'd rise to the challenge or crumble under the pressure, only time would tell. Weeks passed, and I could see the effort she was making. She showed up prepared for meetings, stayed late to refine her work, and even started asking for feedback from her teammates. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. However, not everyone on the team was as forgiving as I was. Rumors started circulating, whispers about how she had stolen my job in the first place, about how she didn't deserve to be here, and how it was only a matter of time before she quit. I could see it wearing on her, the once confident and outspoken woman now walking through the office with her head down, avoiding interactions wherever possible. One day, I walked into the break room and found her sitting alone, staring blankly at her coffee cup. She looked up at me, forcing a weak smile. "Do you think they'll ever stop?" she asked softly. I sat down across from her. "Stop what?" "The judging, the whispering," she sighed. "I know I made mistakes, but I am really trying." I leaned back, studying her. "People remember betrayal. It takes time to rebuild trust. You can't expect it overnight." She nodded slowly, stirring her coffee absent-mindedly. I never realized how much I hurt you until I was on the other side." For a moment, I considered letting my guard down, sharing how much pain her betrayal had caused me. But instead, I simply said, "Success isn't about proving people wrong, it's about proving yourself right." Her eyes met mine, and for once, I saw sincerity. "I want to do that, I really do." "Then show them," I said. "No shortcuts this time." She smiled, a real one this time. "Thanks, for not giving up on me." As much as I wanted to hold on to my anger, I realized something in that moment. Holding on to resentment would only weigh me down. I had won not because I got the bigger job, but because I had grown beyond the need for revenge. As the months rolled on, she slowly earned back the team's respect, not through words, but through actions. She started owning her responsibilities, seeking mentorship, and working harder than ever before. And though things would never quite be the same between us, I could respect the effort she was putting in. One day, during an all-hands meeting, our CEO singled out our department for its exceptional performance. I watched as she finally allowed herself to smile, knowing she had contributed to that success. After the meeting, she approached me, nervous but hopeful. "I've been offered a position in another department, a fresh start," she said, looking for my reaction. I studied her for a moment before nodding. "I think it's a good move. A clean slate." She smiled. "I think so too." As she walked away, I realized something: I didn't need an apology anymore. I had moved on, and so had she. I learned that the best revenge isn't making someone pay for their mistakes, it's succeeding despite them. And as I stood in my office, looking over the team I had built, and the success I had earned, I knew one thing for sure: I didn't just get my job back, I had taken back my self-worth.